Might let you stay in if we build a wall. If you keep behaving, we might let you stay in if we build a wall.
Okay, yeah.
In the last 10 years, it might
Yeah.
not make you move outside the wall.
Mr.
Fair
Mayor,
on the fence.
we're live again.
Is that a containment wall?
Yeah.
Is a containment wall? Keep this team in?
We're live.
Huh?
We're live again.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We got a motion to go back into general session, so we're going to continue with the agenda. And the continued items from last month's meeting that we need to start with tonight is going to be the request to rehabilitate and utilize the Boy Scout hut to local American Legion Post 91. All right, we'll start with Town Manager, if you have some information regarding the LWCF and the PRTF.
So, Mr. Mayor, in your packets, you'll find the determination from Natural and Cultural Resources and Parks Department from the state regarding the disposition and anything that can happen with that land. They lay out several scenarios, so depending on how this board wants to proceed with a Boy Scout hut, we'd have to explore what we'd need to do, whether it would be, it's pretty clear from the language in that the Boy Scout hut, they were not aware that the Boy Scout hut existed. So if we can prove the existence of the Boy Scout hut, that at the time the grant was conferred, then it can remain as is and be utilized basically for any public purpose. If not, we would have to try and receive some type of dispensation from NC Parks on the utilization of that facility. So really depends on what the board wants to do.
But we should be able to prove that the building was there prior to 1979, correct?
Attorney Edwards?
I wasn't able to find any documentation.
Microphone.
So maybe we could even go back, we might even be able to research if we could find something in the newspaper, picture of the Scout Hut and Spring Hut prior to, anything as simple as that would prove the existence of the Scout Hut prior to 1979.
Actually
correct?
asked a couple of the members of the Historical Association here in Spring Hope if they could come up with something like that, a newspaper article or a photograph or something, so.
Okay.
79.
All right, so we've got some information. I think it's clear that we would love to see something like this happen. Again, it's just Big Brother. You guys know I'm not a fan of government overreach, but they have some say-so, and so we just need to get with the Historical Society, it sounds like, to create some type of a documentation, as Commissioner Griffin said, to prove the existence of it, and then Mr. Diano could navigate back through the state channels to get that documentation, and then what's the next step after that?
The next step really depends on whether or not if we can prove that the building pre-existed from 1979, then we would have to try and establish that use and receive permission from the NC Parks to actually utilize the facility in that way for the American Legion Post and Boy Scout hut and et cetera.
Can both of these happen in unison? Go ahead and start the communication with Parks, let them know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't suppose, why not? We'd have to survey the facility and kind of map it and, spend some upfront money to do all that.
But it would seem to me if we can do that, and one of the options in here, if we can do that, is it can be used, continue to be used, provided it's used for recreation or related and public programs. So to me, it would be obvious that scouting and or the Legion are both public programs. So if we can prove the existence prior to 1979, then we should be clear for it to be rehabbed, to be used for those uses once we get the proof that was on that
Well,
plot. prior to that.
interestingly enough, and that's a good point, Commissioner Griffin. Interestingly enough, the one question they didn't answer was whether or not the scouting and the American Legion Post constitutes a public use. So I guess that would be my question back to them again, and point blank would be, do those constitute public uses? Would you be all right with that? And then, proceed from there. But we do need to survey the cemetery in the not-too-distant future, and this would be a good opportunity to survey the park as well, not just the Boy Scout hut area, but obviously the entirety of the park, so we could do both those things simultaneously.
At the end of Branch?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Oakdale.
Okay. All right. We'd love to hear if someone from the Legion, we're really grateful for what you all are doing out there and what you're trying to accomplish. I think it's amazing to have individuals like you all in the community that want to take on a project like this and spearhead it. Just riding by there and seeing it being cleaned up makes a huge difference. It makes a big difference. People see it, and it makes them want to clean up and do something as well. If y'all would like to speak, please. And we're hard of hearing if you want to come up and speak in the microphone.
Well, I just would like to request that if we can come up with,
Mr.
We
Bass,
do
if you could
ask
speak
everybody
into
to
the
say their
mic so
name
that-
and address.
my name
We-
is Milton Dickinson Bass. I'm the commander of Post 91 American Legion in the town of Spring Hope, North Carolina. And I'm one of the first ones to tell you, I'm very disappointed with our government. And I'm gonna start right here. And I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel. This is going on 4 months. How long does it take to read a paper and explain to me or let me know whether or not we can go forward? My second request is, turn your back and let us go to work.
Well, I appreciate Mr. Bass's perspective. I don't necessarily disagree with him, but the fact of the matter is, when the town took money from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, as with many federal funds, they come with all kinds of strings. And I'm the first one to say, when you receive grants, be cautious of what you're, buying, because they usually do have, and these are some of the, the strings that were associated with those grant funds. So I'm happy to help navigate the bureaucracy, but it still needs to be navigated. We don't want to put the town in jeopardy.
I agree. But I just don't understand. I mean, I don't quite understand what y'all were talking about a few minutes ago, but it seems to me that the grant, people that made the grant didn't even realize that the Boy Scout hut was there. If we have to prove that the Boy Scout hut was there before 1979, then how do they even know it's there?
The map that was submitted to Land and Water Conservation Fund, the folks that administer the grant, and I don't know who it was at the time, does not include the Boy Scout hut, Mr. Bass.
Like in the 80s, right?
Yes. And that same map somehow, it was recorded with the grant, but that's what they have, that's what they're basing their determination on. So if we can show to them that it pre-existed, then that's just another hurdle that we've.
We had an Eagle Scout from 1957 come in here and say that he was a scout in the scout hut, would that help?
I don't think they're looking for affidavits. They want some type of, right, exactly, documentation, basically.
I think
Well,
the
I think,
historical society.
I would say, probably for myself anyway, it's equally as frustrating to us, because I think it's wonderful y'all are gonna do that. So it's frustrating that when we took that grant, that, previous to all of us, in the 80s. So prior to any of us, and of course, when we did that, then that was the government, now they're here to help us. But the last thing we want to happen is for you all to go and spend a lot of money and time and effort, and then it comes to light, and then the Land, Water, and Conservation Fund cause us problems after the fact. We sure don't want you to spend all your efforts and money to make it a nice thing, and then they have some problem with it. But I think everybody here is probably equally frustrated with the fact we can't seemingly get a good answer from these people that gave us some strings out of their purse 40 years ago and now want to still control things, but we're kind of at their mercy almost, but certainly we want it done. I think it's a great thing, and I think we can find a way to make it happen. We just got to now apparently find some proof for the LWCF
Right.
so we can proceed.
And the fear for the town is if there's, and I'm not sure because I haven't seen these documents that were signed, but whether or not they have some kind of clawback clause where they could take the money back, and obviously they would take the money back and it would probably be subject to interest and so on. So that could be quite pricey for the town, and that's what we want to avoid.
All right.
That's
So
our
you're telling
job.
me if I go to the Eastern Regional Boy Scout and they can bring me a document that says that hut
Yeah.
was built before 1980, then we're good to go?
Well, we're good to go, and then as long as they're fine with the use of the American Legion utilizing that facility, yeah. would
Well,
be.
I mean, I think I've made myself clear on several occasions that we don't want to take the building.
I understand.
We want to meet there once a month. I mean, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any church wants to go down there and have a little meeting, that's public uses, am I correct there?
So maybe this is a question for the board. Who would you want to administer the building? Town staff?
Can we?
We can, but
And that would solidify public use if it was under our.
it would, but then it would be available to anybody in the public. Anybody would have the ability to utilize the facility. So any entity that, obviously within our policies and regulations, as we do
Correct.
with the park, put up a deposit and so on, but yeah,
It would be under the restrictions that the board sets on the usage
right.
requirements.
I have all confidence if we can get that proof that the hut was there prior to 1979,
Okay.
that I have confidence that we can go forward with you all fixing it. And I think those details, like we're talking about here, I think we can
Okay.
make that work.
Yeah, to me, it would be treated no different than the picnic shelter.
All right.
Right.
I don't think we'll have any problem with that. I think we just got to get LWCF satisfied, and when we get them satisfied, I think we can work
Okay.
all that other stuff out amongst Spring Hope people.
Okay.
The worst case scenario is if we cannot prove definitively in their eyes that the building predated, then we would just have to ask their permission to actually maintain the Boy Scout hut there. Let's just call that building the Boy Scout hut for the time being. And I think they'd be,
That's what it's been.
I understand that, but that they basically want us to ask permission to be able to maintain that building.
Thought so.
We'll navigate that. I don't foresee there being any issues. I think we'll navigate it just fine. Appreciate your patience. Sorry it's taking so long. We're going to get there.
I appreciate y'all doing what you can.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'll approve of it, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bass.
Yes, sir.
Chester, thank you for being here as well, representing the Legion. Would you like to speak, sir?
No, sir, I'm out here.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, next item on the agenda, moving on to the new items. Proposed resolution from Representative Chesser and Nash County Commissioners creating a Southern Nash Water and Sewer Authority. And we have representatives from Nash County here tonight, and we'll give them time to speak. And is there anything that you would like to say before we let the county come and speak?
You're asking me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would say, the only thing that I would say about this resolution is this board has told me time and time again that they want to maintain independent utilities. My stand has been since day one that I wanted to help the town achieve that goal to maintain independent utilities, and I would recommend that we maintain an independent utility.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Well, commissioners, if you're okay with this, then we'll let the county come up and speak. All right. Thank y'all for being here too, and we appreciate it. Thank y'all. Who do we have?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jonathan Boone, Deputy County Manager of Nash County. Honestly, I really just came to observe the meeting, see if there's any questions we could answer. But I just based on the comment from the manager, I do want to make clear, with the resolution that was presented and the project that we're working on, there are really no implications for any of the entities that would be a partner on this project. The intent of this project is to develop a regional wastewater plant that would serve as a means of treatment and disposal for any of the entities and really any of the wholesale customers that that project would serve. So I say that to say, if, in our case, Nash County, the project moves forward and Nash County is a member of the authority, which is what the resolution refers to lays out, as an authority with whichever jurisdictions elect to become a part of the authority, then they would operate a plant and the lift stations and the force mains to bring the wastewater to the plant and treat it. But the individual entities, whether it be Nash County, whether it be Spring Hope, whether it be Town of Bailey, whether it be Middlesex, would still maintain their autonomy. They would still operate their systems, and basically they would be a wholesale customer of the plant. So the analogy I would use is Nash County is a wholesale customer of the city of Rocky Mount. We operate an independent water utility. We operate an independent wastewater utility, but we are a wholesale customer of the city of Rocky Mount. They treat the water, they sell it to Nash County, we sell it to our customers. We operate a sewer utility, those customers, customers in Nash County, we discharge that wastewater to the city of Rocky Mount and they treat it. So we are a customer, just like we're a customer of Duke Energy for electricity at the administration building. So this particular entity that would own and operate this regional wastewater treatment plant that we're working on as part of a planning grant that we're currently in the midst of, all that entity would be responsible for is a treatment plant, lift stations, and force mains. The towns, the county would continue to operate independently of that entity, even though those entities may also be represented on the authority. That relationship would be totally separate. So there's a lot of conversations around this topic of a regional plant, and we're trying to work through some of these issues, details, really to kind of determine what the needs are in the area, in the southern part of the county. The county's interest is primarily in industrial development. The county's interested in bringing jobs to Nash County. And to bring jobs, bring industry, we need wastewater treatment. And that is a limited commodity in southern Nash County. As you're aware, or may be aware, Town of Bailey has been under sewer moratorium for the better part of 20 years. But with the growth coming into Nash County from really Wake County, the Triangle, Johnston County, Wilson County, with a lot of the announcements that they have made recently, we certainly anticipate there is going to be growth in the southern part of the county. The county's interested in providing jobs. We need wastewater treatment to support industry. The towns need, particularly Bailey, Middlesex is starting to experience some of that growth and is struggling a bit with wastewater treatment, which they rely on the city of Raleigh. They discharge to the Little River plant at Five County Stadium. You have to be familiar with that plant. And of course, the town of Spring Hope has its own treatment facility. But certainly we anticipate there's going to be growth in the southern part of the county. We're trying to be proactive, get out in front of that. We've primarily been working again with the town of Bailey and Middlesex. This authority, as outlined in the resolution, as you mentioned, that Representative Chesser has offered, lists 4 different entities. And I'm just here to answer any questions you may have about the project. I'm not here pro or con on the resolution. We're really, feel like my goal as staff is to try to get answers to all the questions that may come up from Nash County's perspective, but we're also certainly available to answer any questions that any of the individual entities, and Spring Hope being one of those, if you would like to.
I do have a couple of questions. You are a wholesale customer of Rocky Mount. Does the county help subsidize the expense or offset cost of Rocky Mount operating that? So you're a wholesale customer, you pay a certain rate.
We are a customer, and they charge us for every gallon of water they sell and every gallon of wastewater that they treat. So we, again, I use the analogy of Duke Energy.
Mm-hmm.
City of Rocky Mount is the Duke Energy of water and wastewater for Nash County.
Okay.
And we are in the process of developing some groundwater wells so we're not wholly reliant on the city of Rocky Mount, because we'd like to have the ability, the flexibility, maybe I should say, so that we're not solely reliant on the city of Rocky Mount and being a wholesale customer for water and wastewater. And this regional wastewater plant in that regard, would offer a similar opportunity to the southern part of Nash County and any entities that elected to become a customer of that regional kind of utility is what we're talking about.
So let's go back to water. So the county, let's go back to water, just water, like drinking water.
Okay.
So the county now provides drinking water in some parts of the county,
Correct.
and that is sourced all from Rocky Mount, or is it supplemented by some wells that are operated by the county as well?
As we stand today, that is, every gallon of water is water we purchase from the city of Rocky Mount. But we have just finished work on one groundwater supply well, working away on a second, and we're look in the northern Ash water system, and we're looking to develop a groundwater well in the central Ash system. So we will likely be a blended system. We, as of today, April 7th, every gallon of water we currently sell is the water we purchase from the city of Rocky Mount as a wholesale customer.
I've got a
So one of the
follow-up
reasons-
question
End of our relationship.
on yours.
City of Rocky Mount produces the water.
Yeah.
It goes through a meter. Every gallon that goes through the meter, we purchase, we resell.
I've got
So
a
then
question
the
for
city of
you.
Rocky Mount sets those rates for that water, and you pay whatever
Just like
rate they
any
set.
utility would, just like this regional authority
Right,
would
sure.
for a regional wastewater plant. Certainly, I don't think it would be the intent of the authority or the district or whatever entity is set up to own and operate those assets to operate at a deficit. It should be to cover the cost.
Sure.
So what do
So
you think on
then-
this? Let me ask you a question, Commissioner Griffin. What do you think about Spring Hope being a provider and they becoming a customer of us as we grow our system?
Well, I know that, I've probably been on this board longer than anybody else on here. And one of the primary reasons that I ever ran for this board to begin with, right many years ago, was that the county was coming to the town about tying us into their water system. And we've had a lot of water woes, we all know that. And I was very much against that for a lot of reasons. One of which is, and I understand you've made some, the city of Rocky Mount has made some agreements since then, and y'all are supplementing with the wells you're hoping to drill. But from about Memorial Day until it starts raining again in November, if we miss about 2 days of a good dew in the summertime, Rocky Mount at the time would go on water restriction. And it was obvious to me, they didn't have enough water to supply what they were supplying. And I don't know if they've done something different, but I saw that as if we had tied into the city of Rocky Mount, and I think they would have wanted to tie our wells into their system to give them some more capacity. That would have mean that we would give up a lot of control, you know? And so I was very much against that then, and I now still have a lot of reservations about giving up the control that we have with our wastewater treatment plant and with our wells. We've spent a lot of money to improve those things and make them solvent, and we've changed our rates, and we've had rate studies done so that we've increased our rates so that we can support those utilities and so that we could hire people to run our utilities. We've been down that road of EnviroLink, and that was not a good road to be on because we lost control of who maintained our system. And that was bad for the town and bad for the residents. And so we've done things to try to make our system better, and we're working on some projects for our system. And during all that difficulty, I didn't really hear anything from the county about coming to help Spring Hope. And now I see this as the county wants to put in a water treatment plant. And in order to do that, they need some of our credits of discharge that we can discharge into the Tarpan Basin. And I just have a hard time wrapping my head around how this would benefit the town of Spring Hope. So you would propose us paying someone else to treat our water, and certainly, yes, water plant and the water system need to be run like a business, and they have to make money, and they have to stay solvent. And so maybe the thought is with more volume, you can do that at a cheaper price, but, you know, if we're buying if we're paying the county to treat our water, we have no control over what you charge us to treat our water. And we have no control over the people that manage that treatment plant. And, you know, you brought up Duke Energy, and so I'll bring up something about CP&L and now Duke Energy. Years ago, there was a CP&L dispatch yard in Nashville. And our service from CP&L in this part of the county was pretty good. CP&L went through the process of consolidating and saving money, and they were gonna be able to close locations, and that would enable them to hire more people to support their infrastructure and their process, and the service is gonna be better. Well, I can tell you that ever since they closed that dispatch yard in Nashville, and I think they've even closed the one in Zebulon, our service from Duke, CP&L and now Duke, is much less than what it used to be. And we have very little control over what they do or when they come. And so my concerns are, if we participate in this, and I've not probably followed this as closely as I should, but I have followed it some. And what I see is Spring Hope included in a lot of the plans, and included in a lot of, Spring Hope would be one of the entities. And to be honest with you, it's a little bit insulting that you haven't come over here to speak to us about that until tonight. Now, granted, the manager and I went and sat down with Robbie Davis a year or two ago about this issue, and I still have some of the same concerns now that I had then. But y'all want to lump us into these entities and take control of our water and our wastewater treatment, and take our credits and move our people to Nashville or Rocky Mount or wherever. And you've talked about this, and Representative Chesser has talked about it. Nobody's been over here to talk to us about it once. So you're gonna really have to convince me and tell me what the benefit to the town of Spring Hope would be to go from having our own water system that we manage and we have paid to keep up and improve and get solvent. What is our advantage? Why would we want to participate in something that we all of a sudden have a lot less control over?
Okay, so you've covered a lot of ground. I'm gonna try to hit some.
I know I have. I'm
And
sorry.
I'm gonna miss some, so.
That's
maybe
okay.
What I missed, redirect. First, the resolution you had in front of you was not prepared by Nash County.
Okay.
It was not prepared by the town of Bailey, to my knowledge. It was not prepared by the town of Middlesex, and it sure wasn't prepared by the town of Springfield. That's the first thing. We didn't prepare the resolution. You mentioned Representative Chesser. He may or may not have a role. Honestly, I do not know who authored the resolution. The only thing I know for certain is I did not author the resolution.
Okay.
That's as far as I can go with that. Second thing, the project that we're here to, that I'm here to answer any questions you may have, does not have anything to do with the Spring Hope's water or sewer system. Doesn't have anything to do with your wells. It doesn't have anything to do with your water mains. It doesn't have anything to do with your sewer mains. It doesn't have anything to do with lift stations. It doesn't have anything to do with your wastewater treatment plant. Those things are outside the purview of the project that we're working on as part of the planning grant. The planning grant is looking at, and it's not a water treatment plant, it is a wastewater treatment plant.
Well, I did know it's wastewater.
So we're all on the
Yeah.
same page, we're talking about wastewater.
Yeah, I do know that.
Okay, so, and, again, I think we all can appreciate, wastewater treatment capacity is very limited in the southern part of Nash County.
It is.
But again, this project has nothing to do about the water or sewer system, or wrestling away any of those systems from Spring Hope, or Bailey, or Middlesex, or anybody else who may be a party to this project. The only thing this project is about is how to bring additional treatment capacity, wastewater treatment capacity to southern Nash County. So if Spring Hope participates, or Spring Hope doesn't participate, it would not impact your utilities that are owned and operated by the town of Spring Hope. The only thing it would offer the town is another means of treatment. Whether you are a member of the authority that owns the asset, being the plant and the lift station and the force mains, primarily along NC 581, that would bring it to the plant from the north, would bring it from the south from Bailey and Middlesex up to the plant. That is all this regional authority would own and operate. And if Spring Hope needed additional treatment capacity above and beyond your current wastewater plant, which I believe, I'm gonna go out on a limb, I think it's 400,000 gallons a day. Is that correct, Mr. Manager?
Yes.
So if growth begins to happen in Spring Hope, whether that's residential, whether that's commercial, whether that's industrial. Let's say you have an industrial client that's interested, or commercial client interested in locating in Spring Hope, and they need 200,000 gallons a day. What is your average flow today? Again, I'm asking questions I probably should know the answer to, but I don't, so I'm gonna be vulnerable and ask the question. What is your average flows today?
I'm sorry, why are you asking these questions?
I'm attempting to respond to a commissioner's question, and I could use that information. And if you know it, great. If you don't, I'll just assume a number. Let's just say you're at half your current capacity. Let's say you're at 200,000 gallons a day. And generally, the state wants you to start thinking about expanding your infrastructure once you're about 70% of your capacity. So really, if you have 400,000, once you get to about 280,000, the state's going to want to know what your plans are for expanding. And whether that's you expanding your current plant, or you looking to another entity, or you're looking to maybe this regional authority if there's a plant there. But you would have that option. That would be Spring Hope's option, whether you want to expand your existing infrastructure, your existing plant, or if this plant were available, you become a wholesale customer of that plant. Completely your discretion, your prerogative. It's your system. You operate it the way you feel like is best for the town and for the customer. So that's really all this project is about, is providing a resource for the county. If it was a wholesale customer of this plant, and the board has not voted on this resolution. To this point, they've discussed it, they're aware of the project, but we have not adopted the resolution. So at this point, the authority is a concept that does not exist yet. None of the towns have approved this resolution. Now, I believe I believe Bailey's supposed to take it up around the end of this month, Middlesex, first week, second week of May, I believe. Could be wrong about that, but they're starting to have conversations about this. But again, it's not a resolution that I authored or Nash County created. Because we're really still in the process of vetting this idea, what this plant might look like, how big it might be, what the regulatory requirements would be, how much it would cost to build the lift stations, how much it would cost to build the force mains, all those things. We're still wrestling with those issues. But there's been some interest by someone involved in the process of starting this conversation about the authority. And again, I'm not here to convince you one way or the other. It's just an idea that's out there on the table, and I'll try to answer any questions you have about that. But again, this project would have no implications for the town and its existing utilities unless the project is built and the town elected to be a wholesale customer of, again, we're gonna say the authority because that's what's currently articulated in the resolution.
So,
But you would still be independent of that authority. Now, if you decide to be part of the authority that pursues building this plant, building these lift stations, building this force main to bring wastewater to the plant, that would give the town another option, if you will. Again, you wouldn't have to use it. You could decide to expand your own plant if you wanted to. This would just give you another potential option. Maybe it would be cost effective for you, maybe not. Until we build it, we really don't know. But members of the authority would have a role in operating that plant and would have the responsibility for determining how to price that commodity, how much it would charge wholesale customers for that service, to take wastewater from a town, or in case, even the county, if we were discharged to the plant, how much they would charge for that treatment. So in that respect, being part of the authority, the members of the authority would have a role in determining how to operate and maintain that asset. They would hire the personnel, they would set the rates. They would basically almost like an independent utility. It would just have multiple members, assuming the project comes to fruition. And again, at this point, that has not been determined. But it would not impact Nash County's utility system. We would still be independent. Spring Hope, if you elect to participate or not, and you were a wholesale customer, Bailey, Middlesex, they would still remain independent of this entity that all it would own is a treatment plant and the infrastructure to bring wastewater to the plant.
So then do I understand or that, so there's a resolution, and the resolution, if it goes through, then would be to apply for grant monies to build this proposed plant? Potentially, is that kind of the way that works? And so the more people that have expressed interest in being a part of that authority, then the more attractive that package looks to possibly get funding. Is that
So I would
probably
say
accurate?
conceptually, there's an advantage to
Right.
the more members there are, certainly it's easier to fund the project.
Right.
The more attractive that's gonna be to the state and the federal government in terms of offering money to build the project, as opposed to if it's just a Nash County project, or honestly, it's just a Spring Hope project, or just a Bailey project, or just a Middlesex. The manager can probably, attest in dealing with the state, one of the words that you will hear a lot is regionalism. Kind of shared risk, shared reward. And in this case, building a plant that will be owned and operated, if the resolution were to come to fruition, those members by an authority, would be an authority that would have multiple entities. It would be shared risk, shared reward, kind of one point of accountability, that authority operating that plant and the infrastructure to support that plant. But again, it has nothing to do with the utility system in any community in Nash County or the utility owned by the county. Those are still independent. This will be almost like a standalone separate utility that owns and operates a plant. That will offer treatment capacity to any customers that need it. But I'm going a little off base because, these are not prepared remarks, but certainly, a regional approach would probably be looked upon more favorably by the state and by the federal government for funding to build the project.
Which is why it's important for the people that like to have this regional plant to get as many people to sign on and say, yes, we would be interested.
Well, not only that, but again, those entities that will be part of that authority would have a voice and would have a role in how that plant would be operated, funded, and the rates that are set, serving whatever wholesale customers are relying on the plant for all, a portion of their wastewater treatment.
So let's just, I don't have any prepared remarks either, so let's just say plant gets built. Whatever entities decide to be a part of that authority, if there's 2 of them or 6 of them. One of those entities that is a portion of that authority says, you know what, we're part of this authority, but we don't need that plant, we're not using it. Is every entity in that authority gonna be charged some kind of fee, whether they use that plant or not? If you have an entity that is part of the authority, but they're not using any capacity of the plant, are they still gonna have input in setting rates, or they would be, how does that work?
So this is where you're gonna start asking some questions that we're trying to vet through
Right.
this planning grant, which is why I'm a little.
Sure, but I don't mean to put you on the spot,
about
but,
where we are,
yeah,
but the subject has come up, so I'm trying to make myself available to answer questions as best I can. But my educated guess on that would be, a member of the authority, whoever those members are, would not be compelled to be a customer of the authority, but they would have some ownership interest, and would have a role in setting the rates to make sure that the investment, whatever outside investment, certainly we're hoping to take advantage of state and federal grants to build this kind of infrastructure that will serve the county and the jurisdictions and municipalities within the county. But that would not compel any of the entities to be a customer. The customers are whoever the customers are. But certainly through the planning process, we'd like to get some idea of what needs are there, and we're trying to project what those needs are out into the future, and to the degree that, and again, so Bailey, certainly very interesting.
right,
I think Bailey really doesn't have any option.
right.
They're trying to invest in their current system and minimize inflow and infiltration. They're very limited in terms of what they can do with their existing treatment. So at this point, I would say Bailey's pretty vested in this
Right.
project moving forward.
Sure.
So anything above and beyond their existing treatment capacity, I think the thought is, and to a certain degree it's an assumption on my part, but just what I've heard is they're counting on this plant to accommodate the future growth in the town, whether that be residential, whether that be industrial, whether that could be commercial. Middlesex, on the other hand, is thinking about a blended approach. They already have a contract with the city of Raleigh. They already have infrastructure that discharges to the Little River plant at Five County Stadium. They're not gonna walk away from that. They already have a financial commitment. But again, Middlesex is growing. They're growing now. They've got more demand than they've got capacity, not so much for water, but for wastewater. So Middlesex is thinking about kind of a two-pronged strategy. Continue to use a Little River plant, and they're actually trying to acquire, or the mayor is sharing at our meetings, that he's trying to acquire additional capacity from the city of Raleigh and the Little River plant. But he's also interested in this regional plant, in that it could potentially provide treatment capacity for the Middlesex Corporate Center, which the county has developed, the industrial part, and then commercial interest on US 264 on the east side of Middlesex. So he would have the flexibility, if he so chose, the town so chose, to send flow to the Little River plant, if they had additional capacity there, or if they were about to exceed that capacity, then they could push flow to this regional plant that we're evaluating and trying to develop. So it would just give the town options. So again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Nash County will continue to be a wholesale customer of City Rocky Mountain. But in the southern part of the county, it's really cost prohibitive to convey wastewater from the southern part of the county all the way to Edgecombe County, where the wastewater plant is located. So this is really why Nash County was looking at the project, because it's cost prohibitive to do anything else other than, again, if we were to become a wholesale customer of Spring Hope or Middlesex, and then of course Middlesex is gonna turn around and discharge to the Little River plant. But again, it's just about providing the infrastructure and the flexibility for the county and for the towns that wanna be a partner to the project as we move forward. But I would say it particularly locks any of those entities into anything as far as commitments to the plant. But the plant needs to be self-sustaining. It's an enterprise, it would be an enterprise fund, it would need to support itself.
So, yeah, so again, we can't talk about, I guess we can't, no reason to debate things that we don't know what might happen. So it's
back
kinda hard to
you know,
debate some of that
If this
stuff.
resolution were to move forward,
Yeah.
whatever entities involved, those entities are gonna have to wrestle with a lot of these questions.
Right.
They're gonna have to, form articles of incorporation. They'll have to develop bylaws. They're gonna have to wrestle with a lot of these things. And, certainly we're gonna try to leverage the experiences of other authorities. There's 15 in the state. There's 5 districts. We certainly wanna repeat anybody's mistakes and certainly capitalize on successes. But that's one of the things that, that's several steps down the road from where we're at. But that would be one of the things that, whatever entities elect to participate, they're gonna have to wrestle those issues and figure out what's best for that authority and how best to operate that plant.
So, where would this authority or this plant, where would they get credits from to be able to discharge into that basin? And I suppose the basin theoretically or hypothetically is proposed somewhere on the Tar River in this end of the county, 581 or somewhere roughly.
But a discharge in Tar River, basically all the entities, Spring Hope is one of those entities, is a member of Tar Pan Association, Tar Pan Basin Association. There's 15 different entities that are part of that association. And any of those entities that need additional capacity would have to get that allocation from the Tar Pan Association. Any new utility, whether it be private or whether in this case, this authority, I keep saying authority because that's what's in the resolution, would have to basically get those credits in order to have the ability to discharge into the Tar River.
And so that's kind of what I'm asking, where would the credits come from for this authority? Are those some non-existent credits that the state would just automatically grant to the authority? Where are those credits gonna come from? Because I know that's highly, highly regulated, those credits.
That is correct. So the state has a role, the Basin Authority certainly has a role, but there are also private mitigation banks, and the state has a mitigation bank. So again, we're starting to drift into one of those gray areas where there's still questions we've got to answer, and we're trying to wrap our arms around that. But certainly know there's a regulatory component. Tar Pan Basin Association will have a role to play, and private mitigation banks may also have a role to play. At this point, it's difficult to say what that might look like, but that's one of the issues that we're working on.
Okay, so then another concern I have is, let's say it's built. The authority is built. It goes through, you get the money, put it in. And for whatever reason, it's not industrial development. Middlesex still sending some to Little River. Bailey hadn't grown. We spent millions of dollars on this plant, and we don't have enough, we're not treating enough wastewater. This enterprise fund for the authority is insolvent. It's going in the hole. We can't have that. So, well, I guess my concern would be then the authority would go to the members of that authority and say, well, entities, I'm real sorry that we built this multi-million-dollar plant and we don't have enough wastewater to keep it solvent. And so since you're a member, we're gonna start charging you X per year to keep our fund solvent. You know, that's another concern I have. I wouldn't wanna, I don't think any of the towns would want to be a member of that authority and all of a sudden face a lot of fees because the authority wasn't solvent. You know, I mean, you're kinda, and I know you have to plan, and just a hypothetical, and you have to plan, be ready for growth, but, I mean, it's almost kinda like a build it and they will come mentality. And I do know that that growth is coming. I see it every day when I ride through the county, but, you know, just even building it is kind of a little bit of a hypothetical.
So I would say that's the importance of the planning process, to try to make sure we right-size the plant initially. Certainly, we do not want to try to build more than we need. And again, the regulatory process we have to go through, the state's gonna look at that pretty hard as well, to make sure we're not asking for, a 10 million gallon plant when we really can only reasonably justify, and kind of where we are right now, is a 1.999 million gallon building plant. But that's part of the planning process, to try to predict as best we could. But you kind of tongue in cheek, if I could predict the future, no, don't.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to predict it, but I'm just saying, those are some things that come up in my mind as things that concern me, you know?
Commissioner Gainey?
That's certainly something that, you know, we need to be cognizant of. We need to be mindful of that as we're going through the planning process, because it will be a significant investment. But, you know, and nothing is a sure thing. But it's hard to imagine with our proximity to the triangle and what we've seen in Johnston County and what's announced in Wilson County, and honestly, what's already been announced in Kingsborough, with Natron Energy and some of the other announcements, that we're not gonna see growth. For us not to see growth, I almost think we would have to make decisions, we don't wanna grow. And even then, I think it would be a tall order. So I don't personally, and I'm not a planner, and I'm an engineer, I believe in factors of safety. But I think it's reasonable to assume we're gonna have growth. Now, is it gonna be Spring Hope, or is it gonna be Bailey, or is it gonna be Middlesex, or is it gonna be Nash County, or is it gonna be all four in some other jurisdiction? I don't know, but I think it's reasonable to assume there's gonna be growth, there's gonna be a need for wastewater treatment. And the other thing I'm relatively certain of, as best I can be, it's not gonna get any easier. The regulatory environment is not gonna get any, well, current administration, we'll see, from administration to administration, it may change some, but I don't think it's gonna change. It's not gonna be a difference of night and day. Generally, regulations become, over a stretch of time, become more restrictive, not less restrictive, certainly as it relates to environmental issues.
Now, I know I've over-occupied your time and everybody else's. in the
Thank you for
room,
asking
too.
questions.
So
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna hush for a few minutes and let somebody else ask some questions.
Would the authority control the growth that happens? So would the bylaws, so this authority could write the bylaws where any industrial customers that the county wanted to recruit to utilize the facility, the authority, if the majority of the members voted, no, we do not want this tied into our wastewater treatment facility, the authority, then the authority in essence can control what comes to this side of the county?
I think a more likely scenario is the authority would basically enter into contracts
Mhm.
with their customers, and they would basically allocate a certain amount of capacity.
Mhm.
From that standpoint, you would have control. I think it'd be very difficult to say, the authority wouldn't say, you know, we don't like that industrial plant that the county is recruiting, or we don't like this commercial project that Spring Hope is developing, or we don't like this residential project that Bailey's involved in. Wastewater is wastewater, it's a gallon of wastewater, as long as there's not an issue with constituents in the wastewater causing an environmental issue, a treatment issue. Again, once it's in the system, you don't know the difference from residential, commercial, or industrial. It's wastewater, it needs to be treated, there's permit limits that gotta be met, and once it's treated, it's discharged to the receiving body, in this case, the Tar River. But from the capacity standpoint, the allocation, so if Nash County says we need 200,000 gallons a day of capacity and contract with the authority for that, that's basically your control mechanism, is the authority has entered into a contract with a wholesale customer for X amount of capacity.
And so could the authority delay the construction of the facility if they find out that they're going to be insolvent, like Mayor Pro Tem Griffin said, and so that the debt is not transferred to the members and it affects their fiscal ability to maintain their own operating budget? So if this authority is formed to essentially try to jump on grants that may be available sooner rather than later, and then the growth numbers come back, because it's kind of like horse before the cart, you know, which one is ready for the other yet. And then if the authority is created sometime this year or early next year, and then the growth forecast and the numbers didn't start coming to fruition over the next 2 to 3 years as the planning happens, and then in 3 to 5 years from now, it becomes common knowledge against everybody involved that, hey, this place is not growing fast enough to cover the expenses of what's not granted, you know, the 20 or 40 million that's not going to be granted to cover the expenses of it. And so now all of a sudden that's on the towns. Can the authority simply say, hey, we can't build right now, but the authority still exists and it still gets that grant money? Essentially, is there timing where the authority has to spend the money? Because it may be fiscally just irresponsible. But I see where the authority's trying to get grant money now. But you understand the question?
There is no authority, but certainly the town of Bailey has made a number of requests, both at the state and federal level. Nash County has identified it as a priority for Nash County, and we have shared that with our elected representatives at the state level. We have not had any conversations, to my knowledge, at the federal level. But to your point, certainly, even if the authority were created, if all the jurisdictions, whoever elects to participate, or create the authority tomorrow. There's still a lot of work that has to be done before you ever make the decision. We've got a viable project, we've got the funding to make the project viable, and we're moving forward. So there's a lot of steps that have to happen before that decision is ever made. But back to the risk reward model, shared risk, shared reward, that responsibility would rely on the members of the authority. That's the direction that the project ends up going. They would make that decision, they would have that responsibility, they would be the ones that ultimately would decide, yes, we have a viable project, we can fund this project, whether it's grant funds, however it ends up being funded, they would be responsible for making that decision.
So at this
It wouldn't be
point,
a town decision.
authority is
Unless the town
just
were a part of the
decision.
authority, and that authority made a decision to move forward. So it wouldn't be a Nash County decision, it wouldn't be a Spring Hope decision if you were part of the authority. Certainly, if you're not part of the authority, you wouldn't necessarily have a voice in that decision. Only the entities that comprise the authority would have the responsibility for making that decision. Because again, it's not about your utility system. It's about a plant, it's about some force mains, it's about a lift station along 581. It's not going into the town limits of Bailey, it's not going into the town limits of.
So I had a question there. Not to cut you off or anything, but you've said it several times that this is about a lift station and a plant. If it is exclusively about a lift station and a plant, then why did they choose to title it the Water and Sewer Authority instead of just Sewer Authority?
It's really the instrument that the state has established in the general statutes. But there's been no discussion about it being a plant that treats water. You have one or the other. You don't have both, not a blended model. We're talking about wastewater treatment capacity.
Well, we're talking about wastewater treatment capacity, and I understand that, but it says Water and Sewer Authority, so To me, any entity, if this entity comes into existence, they can use that language in the title to take over those water assets that each of the towns have.
No, that's not accurate at all.
So, now, the way things currently are, I understand, fully understand Bailey's interest in something in this, and Middlesex too. The way things currently are, let's say, the town of Spring Hill wants to, that water sewer fund is really important to us. That's where we're able to do a lot of other things in town, that's, very important to every small town, big and small. Some industry, we could recruit an industry or development or whatever that may take more capacity than we have. But if we have our own system, then we have the option to, at that point, do whatever it would take to increase our capacity so that we could handle whatever industry or development we would propose coming into our jurisdiction versus.
Even if the regional plan exists, that option is still on the table.
Correct.
In your utility, you operate the way you feel best.
I understand
Whether
that.
you decide to use that asset to treat it, or you decide either currently got the capacity, or you decide to expand your wastewater plant. That is a decision only the people sitting around that table can make.
But if you, but let's put yourself in the shoes of XYZ industry or ABC, home developers, and you want to develop a multi-billion-dollar project, in some portion of Nash County, and you know it's gonna take wastewater treatment capacity. Who, in the case of there is the authority and some small independent towns, the authority's gonna have more capacity, who you gonna go and propose your project to? You're gonna go propose it to that authority, and that takes away some of the, autonomy of those members of that entity, because the authority is already there. So I just think if I were looking at building a plant or development or whatever, it was gonna take a lot of wastewater treatment to do it, to get it developed, I would pitch my proposal to the authority, not one of the small towns. So then that would, I have the thought that it would take away some of our autonomy when it comes to thinking about future development. If you're, why wouldn't you, as a business person, you would probably go to that authority and not the town? Then that's a collective, I don't know, it's just, to me, it just takes away more of our planning ability as a separate municipality. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's just where initially it seems to me.
I guess the general comment I would make to that, and please redirect me if I'm making the wrong assumption. If we're talking about a development within the town limits, they would be connected and served by the town of Springfield.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a development that might come in and we might want to extend our boundaries of the town to take in this new industry or this new development, and it would be very beneficial to the town to take in whatever it may be. I understand that you're saying we would not lose control of what we already have, but I'm thinking about in the future, it seems to me that by joining the authority, then it somewhat inhibits our ability to ever grow our system. Because once the authority is established, then most likely all the points of access into that authority, the plan of that would be for it to abut right up to where we already are. And so once that were developed and that plan in place, then it would impede our ability to expand our existing footprint.
What's interesting, because I would say just the opposite. I would say it would give the town the flexibility to extend its infrastructure to serve that development.
Because you're
And
saying we
either
could use
decide-
that.
You could either decide if you didn't have capacity, if you wanted to expand your plant, which would not be something you would be able to accomplish in short order, depending on scale of development, versus if you had an alternate, where you could divert some of that flow to a plant that already existed, it would be back to autonomy. That would be a decision for the town to make, whether you want to make that investment, does the timeframe work for the developer and their vision for development of their project? Does that give you enough time to ramp up and expand your plant? or do you need to move quicker? And you need to be able to divert flow to this regional plant? It actually, from my perspective, would give the town more options, as opposed to if you're not a party authority and you're not a wholesale customer, at the end of the day, you are limited, just like Bailey is limited today and was limited 20 years ago. They had more flow than they had treatment. And when they had more flow than they had treatment and they couldn't expand their plant, what happened?
Shut them down.
They shut them down. Well, they didn't shut them down.
I mean,
They said
shut
you
down
can't
more
grow.
development. Yeah.
Right. So with the regional plant and the flexibility to discharge of that plant, that just gives you another option. You're not compelled to use it, but it's like having the ability to decide, I want CP&L, or, you know, I want, and my internet, do I want bright speed, do I want, you know, do I want to shoot to a satellite, you know, who do I want to provide my internet? You as a customer make that decision. With the regional plant, if the infrastructure in place with set flows in town, you have the flexibility to decide if you needed additional capacity, how best to meet that need. Whereas if you were just limited to the infrastructure you have in place, you don't know what your current capacity is or how quickly you can expand.
May I ask, who is funding this? You gonna try to get this done through grants or what?
So certainly, the goal would be to try to leverage as much state and federal grant dollars as could be brought to bear to make the project a reality.
And if you don't get enough, then what? You expect the
And
towns?
then the authority would have to make the decision, can we bridge the gap? And then you have to look at, well, if you bridge the gap, then how much you would have to charge
Each
for
time.
treatment, and then does that become unrealistic? To get to a point where, let's just say, again, some numbers have been floated on the project, and it ranges, so let's just use round numbers, $100 million. And we're able to bring together, let's just say $50 million. And we've gotta come up with another 50. You've got the investment to build a plant and force mains and lift stations, $50 million, and you're treating 2 million gallons a day. You're probably gonna have trouble pricing that commodity at a level that it makes sense. It will likely become infeasible to make the numbers work for that project to go forward. But let's just say you get 75 million, and you gotta come up with 25 million, however you decide to do that. You take on debt, you take loans, you bring cash, however you close that gap. And then you look at a 2 million gallon a day plant and how much that costs and how much you would have to price that commodity to make those payments on your loan, if there's a loan, or if there was cash, replenish the cash. So that gets back to, we're kind of in this process to try to figure that out. We'll look at some different scenarios. But whatever entity is stood up to take this project forward would have to evaluate, make that very evaluation and decide, do we have a viable project or not?
I know nothing is free. You're not paying it now. So,
So the authority decides whether or not the plant happens or not.
I'm talking.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had finished. Okay.
I know nothing is free. And so, and I know this is gonna cost. And you can't tell us tonight what it's gonna cost. We're not paying anything now. We're not obligated to pay anything now. We are self-sufficient now. And I think we are okay now. I'm from the old school. I'm always skeptical about, when someone brings something to me of this nature, whatever it is, how's it gonna benefit me? And I heard what you said tonight. And then I'm wondering, how is it gonna benefit you? And listening and all of this, I think somebody has a plan and they've figured it out where it's gonna benefit them more than it's gonna benefit these towns because they're gonna make money. Can't convince me otherwise. That you get this what you call it, station, wastewater treatment station, is for the county to make money. County gonna make money off of us. We don't need it right now. That's my opinion. You gotta always be careful when somebody try to sell you something that sounds good. Because a lot of times it sounds good, and everything sounds good is not good. I'm through, you can talk now. I summed it up.
Well, first, I'd like to say, the decision to go forward or not, when we reach that point, and when I say we, that's, you know, whoever we is at the time, those entities will have to make that decision.
Right.
And there would be, if Spring Hope is not a party authority, and you are not a wholesale customer of the authority, if the plant gets built, then you would have no investment one way or the other.
Right.
But you would also not have a role in determining how that entity is operating. The only way to have a voice in that process, honestly, is whoever elects to go forward with the project. They would be the ones calling the shots. Because again, they basically operate as a standalone utility. But the thing I would say is, I'm not aware, and maybe Spring Hope is an anomaly, too many water and sewer utilities that are making money hand over fist. Really what they're trying to do is cover their cost. It's infrastructure. They're trying to cover their cost to really support development and reinvestment in their community. So from where I sit, as deputy county manager, and county engineer, as deputy county manager and county engineer, former utility director, this is about bringing the infrastructure that will allow the towns that elect to utilize that asset, and it's wholly their decision. It's not compulsory. But gives them another option, for wastewater treatment. But it's not anything that the authority, if Spring Hope elects to participate or not, that could compel the town of Spring Hope to say, you have to send your wastewater to the plant. That would be a decision that the town would make.
Have to make.
That the county would make, as far as using that infrastructure. But generally, utilities, water and sewer, maybe we can have a little different conversation about municipalities that operate electric utilities and gas utilities. There tends to be a little bit more margin in those areas. Water and sewer utilities are generally not a high margin operation. They're really just hoping to cover the cost.
Okay, that's been a lot of information, and I think we all are aware that it's very preliminary. No decisions are being made. And to summarize, make sure I understand correctly, it's the authority that will make the decisions about the wastewater treatment plant if the authority is developed. And if it's not developed, then the project would continue to be pushed by the county, or would it just kind of just sit?
Decision for the board of commissioners, not for the deputy county.
Okay, all right, got it. Okay, so that was a lot of information, and it's something that'll be several months away. Yes, Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem Griffin?
Well, Mr. Cone, Mr. Tony hadn't asked any questions. They might have some comments or questions.
You covered it pretty good. I guess for me, I mean, I'll get it real simple. And to Ms. Lucas's point, there's no such thing as free lunch.
Yeah.
And we got some type of investment to join the, whatever you call it. Is it our credits? And if we lose those credits, then that's take away our capacity to grow our wastewater. You know, those are the things that I think about.
I would say
What-
no more so than the other 14 entities that are part of the Charlton Association. And, you know, as big as the basin is, there's going to be growth in the Charlton Basin. Whether that's in Greenville, whether that's in Rocky Mount, whether that's in Spring Hope, whether that's in any of the small communities upstream of Spring Hope, there's going to be growth in the Charlton Basin. We're in eastern North Carolina, but the growth is coming our way. How quick it'll get here, I don't know, but certainly we're seeing signs of it now.
I understand that.
But yeah, I mean, there are implications for the existing members and any future new members that would look to discharge into the Tar River.
I just, you know, I can remember, and I've talked about this many times, even just before I came into office over 8 years ago, we came up with a 20-year plan for our water infrastructure and doing some repairs. Things got drug out. We're starting to see some things come to fruition now, but back in those days, to Commissioner Griffin's point that he made earlier, when we had our struggles with EnviroLink and all of our costs, and we were at risk, and we managed through that long process over that 8 or 9 years to get ourselves back out of it. And we've really seen some stuff come to fruition in the past 4. It's just awfully ironic that nobody paid attention then, and suddenly they all pay attention now. So it does look suspect, like there's something that we got that you want. And I'm not talking about you in particular, or this whatever it's called, authority. It's got something, and so, again, to Ms. Lucas's point, what we got that you want? So.
What you've got and what any entity has, including the county, is the opportunity to collaborate with the communities around you to develop a shared asset. You can continue to go along if you want to, and that's, again, that's a decision where you can make. You can decide, we're gonna create
I
all
got
our
you.
own water, we're gonna treat all our own wastewater, and that's fine.
Well-
There's nothing wrong with that, and there's some risk to that, and there's some reward to that. And I can't quantify that for you, but I know there's something.
Yeah, well, and there again, to the mayor's point, I know there's still, even to yours, there's some development to happen before a true decision can be made, but I'm pretty sure it'll come out what the cost of lunch is gonna be to join the club.
And, you know, and so
We can talk over the top of it.
We'd all be happy to be a customer of Town of Springfield and a 2 million gallon a day plant on the
but look,
You have got that flexibility.
but look,
I'm reasonably confident, I cannot speak for the Board of Commissioners, but I'm reasonably confident, if you wanna make that offer tonight, I can get you an answer really.
but we all know this is probably accurate. And then, once again, hypothetical. Let's say that this goes through, it's the authority, whoever joins, whatever. Once those towns do that, I don't care if it's Bailey, or Spring Hope, or Charlotte. Once they join that authority and have that capacity of that shared resource, you know, and the people that would run that facility know that the likelihood of any of those municipalities, whether it be, as I said, Montgomery, Springfield, or Charlotte, adding to their existing plant or making improvements on their existing plant, the chance of that happening is gonna be slim or none once that authority is established. It is a way to eventually move all those entities or that area will eventually, over time, most likely move to that regional facility.
Again, I would say that would be a decision.
I know you would say that, but you know something about it, that's the most likely
Here's
thing.
the reason I say that.
Yeah.
The town of Spring Hope has an allocation. Your permit has an allocation.
Right, I know that.
Whether you treat a gallon of wastewater, or you treat 400,000 gallons of wastewater, which is, again, permit limit's 400,000, but really about 280, the state's gonna want to talk to. But you can decide today, you know what? We wanna upgrade the technology we've got at our plant. We wanna invest in technology that will basically do twice as good a job as treat as it does today. Because at the end of the day, the state really doesn't care how much flow you accept. All they care about is what gets discharged into the river. And that really boils down to pounds of nitrogen and pounds of phosphorus.
Right.
So you can decide, I drive a 2005 Honda today. I can decide I want to drive a 2020 Honda and get better gas mileage and have it be more reliable. You can do the same thing with your wastewater plant. You can decide, we want to invest in some additional technology that will discharge cleaner water to the river. Well, if you can invest in technology that's twice as effective as treatment, I'm reasonably confident you could push the capacity of your plant, you could double the capacity of your plant. The state doesn't necessarily care about how much flow you're receiving, they care about how much nitrogen and phosphorus you're putting in the river. So that is still a decision that the town can make, even if the plant existed, even if you were a member of the authority. You make the decision, is it more cost effective to us to retool our plant, invest in new technology, and have cleaner effluent going into the river? Or is it more cost effective for us to send it to this regional plant if the regional plant is built? So again, at the end of the day, I tend to think of it, it just provides options. Doesn't bind you to one or the other, it just provides options. And that's a decision. When you get to that decision point, when you get to the fork in the road, you decide which direction you wanna go.
Right, but we all know what that direction most likely would be if it got to that point. If you got a plant over there that's already got extra capacity and we need some, then certainly initially it's gonna appear that it would. We don't have to keep debating that, I'm
Right.
just.
From a funding standpoint, you're right,
I'm not gonna debate
because
that
the
anymore.
state, you're right, though, in a sense, because if there's a regional plant, the state and federal grants would go there before they would to a small town. So just by the flow of cash, you're right. Right?
I can't speak for the regulators.
Yeah.
Certainly, again, if you talk to the state, they believe in regional, because quite frankly, there's a lot of small utilities in the state that are struggling. Now, Spring Hope invested a lot in your utilities to get them back to where you want them to be, and that's a great accomplishment. And even once you get there, guess what? You're not done.
Sure, it's
You still got
never
to work
ending.
in front of the state to maintain where you're at. But
And
there-
hats off to the state for getting us money to help with that. And it is never ending. Exactly right.
Well, I say we've been in a kind of a unique phase where there's been a lot of grant funds available because of ARPA dollars, because some other funds have come available. That has been an anomaly. I don't know that we will ever see that opportunity again, so it's great that you were able to capitalize on it. Nash County's been able to capitalize on it to extend its infrastructure to serve residents that do not have access to public water today. I think those funds are gonna be available 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? I can't say with any certainty, but I'm not counting on it.
Well, I do know, and I do think we all know that we were very fortunate in that our local representatives to the state senate and the state house were very helpful to us with our water system. And so I talked about us improving things, but we owe a lot of that, a big portion of that, to their support of us.
That's very true. Thank you. Great questions, great conversation, a lot to think about, and we are a long ways away from any kind of a vote on anything. But thank you for being here. You actually answered a tremendous amount of questions for us and really gave us a foundation of a lot of information moving forward. And so over the coming months, as I've made very clear, the Board of Commissioners makes the decisions for the town, and I think they're going to make a good decision that's going to look after Spring Hope first. We have to look after Spring Hope first, and we don't want to just leave the other towns out there to fend for themselves, but we got to take care of Spring Hope first, and that's what the commissioners want to do, and so this sounds like a tough thing to do with just like Mayor Pro Tem Griffin said, once they get there and that authority is established, we're just going to get looked over upon by those large grant funds, I believe, because it was an anomaly. So not a point to make a decision right now on any type of authority. Are there any other questions before we let them go, or is there any final comments?
The only thing I'd like to say, when you talk about communication,
Yes, please.
communication works both ways.
Yes.
If you're available, you've got questions, concern, my phone, 462-2613, cell phone 903-6292. You can call at any time. I'm glad to come here, you can come there. I just happened to come tonight because I understood the town may be talking about it. I want to be available for any questions. I didn't even know I was gonna be standing up at the podium. Back to communication and fostering a collaborative relationship, it takes two parties to make that happen.
You're right.
We've got to work together. So it's not county coming to you, not you coming to us. We need to try to find a way to work better together.
But if I want something from you, I'm making a point, I go to you first. If I want to sell you something, I reach out to you.
Well, again, I came here tonight not expecting to be standing at this podium, so I did not come to sell you anything. I just came to answer any questions you may have.
Appreciate you coming.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda is going to be the disposition of the community building. And we have an engineer's report from a firm on that. And we'll let Mr. Diano proceed with some information on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. You're correct. The town commissioned a structural engineer to go and evaluate the community building because it has been closed for some time. And he did make a very wide-ranging report with some recommendations on the issues, the moisture issues, the water infiltration, and so on. And the board has that in its packet. You'll see that one of the things that I requested from Appian was just a breakdown of cost estimates to what it would take to bring that building back. Now, bear in mind that these are just costs to remediate the issues and clean everything up and bring it back to a state that it's usable. I don't know, the one question I had is I'm not sure whether that triggers something with all the building permits and the costs of improvements to upgrading some of the other codes that are involved, electrical code, plumbing code, and so on. I have a feeling it does because it's more than 50% of the value of the building. That's usually the threshold. So that, a project like that would be closer to $1.5 million. So it's a pricey proposition to bring this building back. I don't think the board has to make a decision tonight, but I think one of the things that the board may want to consider is the demolition of this building, because the cost of improvements are quite significant and would really impact the budget.
Quick question, two. One, does the building hold any historical significance with federal or state, or with the town, any historical significance? I'm not personally sure what it used to be or what it was. And then two, I was curious who the museum is under, if it's under us, and if the building was demolished, could it simply be utilized as a place to grow additional fruit trees, as a park, as an extension of the museum's operation?
So to your first question, I'm not sure of the significance of the building itself. It's not on the National Register. It's not really identified in any of the nominating papers anyway. I think one of the documents we have identifies it as a former lodge, and I don't even know what type of a lodge it was. We'd have to do some research on that. I'm not sure of any other significance around it. In terms of your second question, so the museum actually rests on, as most of you probably know, a town-owned parcel. So while the museum is an independent entity, the land that it sits on is owned by the town. That's the parcel that actually the community building sits on. So yes, the opportunity is there to create a neighborhood park, maybe with some contemplation area, maybe some herb gardens or something that could be, developed with some benches, maybe a water feature, something like that. So it would be a good opportunity and it also, that area supplements the modicum of parking that the museum has. So it also serves as a parking area for the folks visiting the museum.
Were there any other alternate uses that were thought of other than that, or is that kind of?
Well, at least in the short term, it would probably make a decent area for a laydown yard for the water main project, where the company that eventually gets that bid could store some materials.
Which is coming up shortly.
Hopefully.
It's full of mold, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't see what you can do for full of mold. Three different kinds of mold.
I guess one ulterior use that had been in my head when I saw that you sent and I knew it was way out of the budget, was the issues that they're having in a meeting place. Is there some way, if we're locked in and the scout hut turns out to be totally, we can't do it, could we maybe work with the lodge and accommodate to get something there? I know it's a fix into the community building. Nobody's got $1 million+ to
Yeah.
Fix the community building, but could we look at doing something? Because now it's not tied to the grant and the, this is ours, right? So could we do something? And it may not come as quickly as a turn our back and go fix the scout hut would come if we did that. However, it would protect us and it would eventually give a need provide a need for a civic group here in town, so.
Right, and that could be an alternative use too. Obviously, we would have to do, and that would be the town attorney's role to make sure that, the town were indemnified, and, that whatever they did for remediation, the obligation or the responsibility would then go to that organization. So I'm sure we could work something.
Well, not
out.
necessarily, if we're talking about one option is the demo. I mean,
Right.
nobody, I don't think, is going to spend the type of money we're talking about to renovate the community building. That's way too much.
So you're talking about creating
But
lunch?
a different structure, if they've got an amount that they know they can spend, that they were going to put on the scout house, there's something that we can kind of redirect where it's going to be versus a restoration of the scout hut to a, maybe not a community building size facility, but something that would accommodate their needs.
Well, I guess that's something we could explore with, with.
Well,
the
I
town.
guess a simple thing could be you could sell them the land. I
Right.
mean, that's one thing you could do. I mean,
I
I'm
did
not sure.
mention that, but there was a good point about the museum and needing the parking.
Yeah.
Well,
You
you
want
could
to
sell,
accommodate
you
both.
could sell them a portion of the land and use the other portion for the museum.
Yeah, we could do a subdivision of land, yeah.
I mean, that's the more simple, straightforward way.
Right.
But then, I guess you could have a clause in there, if they ever stop using it, then it would come back to the town or something like that.
We could, I mean, but I think there can be an option found within
Yeah, sure.
what we do. I guess that's the point I was getting at. I want to resolve it tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Could we, before the next meeting, could we come up with some other possibilities and so that we can get closer to a point of voting on something to do with the building?
what would you like, I guess I'd need some direction on what you want us to explore. Would you want to explore a subdivision of land? Would you want to explore demolition? Or do you have a slew of
Could we
alternatives?
find the cost just to remediate the mold? And if we remediated just the mold, just remediation, would it be usable?
Well, I think
No, so
that's.
we'd have to spend that full, whatever that big number is. We
Yeah.
couldn't just get rid of the mold and use it.
Yeah,
Ju-
that's
just
just
the-
a starting number.
Just the estimate, the original, the mold was 200 grand, just the
Okay.
mold itself.
Right,
That didn't bring anything else to compliance with the wiring and the plumbing and the structural issues. I mean, that was almost $500,000. But then you look at all the other residual stuff that's gonna fall out when you start repairing, and you're gonna find more. That's just an outward aesthetic view of what they can see. Now, you know yourself, you done house flipping. You get down into a basement, a crawl space, you start getting into floorboards and into joists, suddenly, whoops, there's a whole lot more. And I think that's gonna be the issue with the community building. So as far as finding something viable, obviously, you talked about a park area. It's never been used before. It could be used for something like a park. I wouldn't recommend LWCF because you see what it's done with what's happening at the park. We're locked in forever.
well, I think we could establish a park with town funds. I mean, we could find a way to do that with general funds and not have to rely on outside sources. I mean,
True that.
over-reliance on grant funding, again, we have the
Agreed.
strings and I don't want to get into,
Agreed. But I think maybe that's some of the basic things. Nothing grandiose. But it would qualify if we wanted to do some big grandiose thing for
Tables,
a part of it's, 25 years? As far as grants go, that you can't make any changes. LWCF is,
forever.
yeah, for
I guess you
eternity.
might want to look at closing some of the streets, and then that would, anyway, if you close the streets, you could reconfigure how the streets are out there.
Yeah, with the circle that goes around it. And I don't want to I don't know how the fire department with their access out of the back, if they
You
even
can
ever
work it
use
out.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so on that one, we'll loop back around. Maybe if commissioners get some ideas, they can just email them to you. You could flush them out, and then maybe we can get to a point of voting on it next month or two.
Sure.
I
and
think,
I'll-
I think that's gonna take a while. Have we got an estimate if we decided to go demolish, what it would cost, what the cost
No,
would be?
that was one of the things I was going to explore.
That would be definite, that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't want to presume. I wanted little direction from
It
this
does.
meeting, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Get us a price on this demolition. That's a shame, but it's,
It-
the state it's in.
It is a shame. You know, I wish there was something else we could do if we had a bigger budget or but we have so many other priorities. It's a shame to spend that much money on basically a building that's vacant or could potentially be an office or something else in the future.
Agreed.
Thank you.
So I make a motion, we table the item pending
Thank you, sir.
cost estimate for demolition.
Can we get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is consideration of the event permit for the Spring Hope Car Show. And we have that in our packet. Do we have anyone here on behalf of the car show? Or are there any questions? It's been going on, what, 3 years? 3 years now? Oh, hey, come on up.
I was never on a debate team. I felt like that's where I was for an hour.
If I could just,
I walked are these three little permits.
could I make an observation?
He said he begs to debate.
I think somebody missed their calling. I think Deputy Manager Boone would have made an excellent politician.
Okay.
Still done took it, did he?
On April 26th, which is almost here. And we're a little late on this, but this will be our, third. And, this is where the owners of the antique cars, you know, bring them in. We charge a very small fee for them to register, and they put them on display. And then, around 12 o'clock, they're judged, and they're given trophies and awards. We have some food trucks that'll be on hand, as well as the Girl Scouts will be here as they normally are with their sweets to sell. And the Spring Hope Fire Department will be here to have their regular hot dogs and snacks and things. It's gonna start around, well, they'll be here getting the streets ready at 8, and, but they should be over with by 4 and out of town definitely by 5. So what am I missing, Andrew?
Miss Claris, you did.
8-4.
You did a great job. I have already been in conversations with DOT. There's a whole process now that they have to have for road closures, as you're all aware. Pine Street is a state road, and so we need their permission on that. But I think that you've covered it. The map's in the pretty map is in the packet, so.
Any questions? And if not, we can get a motion to approve the event permit for the Spring Hope Car Show.
I'll make a motion, we approve the event permit for the Spring Up Car Show.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries, thank you. Consideration of event permit for the Little League Tournament. This is exciting. Please tell us more.
Well, there's been work done on the small baseball field, and it's a shame that we don't have more activity on that field. We do have teams that are coming and practicing, but we do not have a lot of games. So I asked Brent, excuse me,
That's who I am.
you know, I could be his mother. But
And that'd be
we
okay.
just needed more activity that would involve children and families coming from Red Oak, Middlesex. We need for those small towns to know that we've got a very nice park, and we want to use that park. It is really, if you haven't been up lately, that ball field is really looking good. It's really green, and it needs to be used. So Brent talked with the, Nash County? Okay, rec, and, got all this lined up. They're gonna do it all. The chamber is going to provide the financing for the officials and then for the, county employees that need to be there.
And the awards, yep.
And the awards and things. The Spring Hope Fire Department will be there to sell the hot dogs and the, snacks and the drinks. We are see around 500 people there Saturday.
Wonderful.
That's probably a good estimate.
So with the 6 teams, 6 of the little teams, and I don't know how many's on each team, and then those parents and those grandparents, and then people that I hope come to just see the ball field being used. So we're pushing our luck because that's Saturday. So, I hope that you can see that we really are trying at the ballpark.
What time does it start?
It starts at 9 o'clock is the first game.
And they'll play all day.
And they will play all day. The fire department, we did ask if we could use, if they could use the concession stand, and we were told that that hadn't been used in so many years that they didn't think it would, you know, be with it. So they suggested going to the shelter. I talked to Andrew. There's electricity down there and water, and it did get cut on, the water.
Yeah, I think it's.
Your house does not work, but I can have it working by the end.
Okay, okay,
I
okay.
have it working for you.
Great, great. So that's where the fire department will be at to sell the hot dogs and.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
So that keeps us from having to haul the tents and the tables and the.
What about the economic impact it has on the town?
Well, hopefully, you know, if they're not eating hot dogs from the fire department, they'll visit, Mimo's or Subway or
That's right.
Showside or.
They will.
The one question I had for the chief, Mr. Mayor, was whether or not we needed an officer with that many folks down there for the tournament. Do we have to have a?
Well, there's not gonna be 500 at one time.
No.
With the teams coming in and out.
Right.
With a normal ball field, normal ball team, especially a rec team, you're looking 14 to 15 kids per team. And then let's just say, I would say at a max, except between people coming and going, because there probably won't be any back-to-back games until you get to the tournament.
Right.
I would say there would be no more than 100 out there at a time.
Okay.
Maybe, and that's counting the players as well, maybe a little more, not counting the players.
Okay.
I don't see it, but I mean, most likely my guys will be there anyway.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'll have 2 working.
The tournament by design is made to keep people in town too. So it'll actually send them over to the
It's
restaurants.
gonna be inconvenient to leave because you
Yeah.
can't be
Right.
so far away.
Right.
Right.
I live that way.
Didn't we both?
I am too.
That's amazing. Thank you, Commissioner Cone, for working on
Don't thank
that.
me, it was Mr.
And thank you.
So we
Chamber that
need a-
did that.
We need a motion to approve this, make a
Please.
motion we approve and support the ball tournament.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to that next
I think he had
permit.
a quick, that is on the grass cutting schedule this week for the park or.
Yeah, it'll be cut cleaned up. Is it gonna go in nighttime, dark, or?
I would think they'd be over with by 6.
I think the last game, I think, starts at 6, so it's very possible it could breach. But the county's running it. It's just like if the county was, it's just like if the county was doing one of their games. So you'll have a supervisor out there and the whole thing, so I mean, as far as security, you've got some county supervision. They're not police officers, but it's not gonna be a free for all kids and parents.
He has a key to the
Yep,
lights.
yep, that should be fine.
That young man, Thomas,
Gillespie,
he's really nice.
yes.
When I've talked with him, he's been really nice.
Let's hear it about Chalk It Up.
Okay, this is a new one. We had one of the chamber people that was in Hendersonville last fall, and they happened to be there on their Chalk It Up. And it was a contest between children and adults, and we have called and talked with them and, with others, and you will be assigned a section of the sidewalk, every section, so you'll be assigned a section. And, you can draw whatever you would like, but you have to bring a sketch of it when you register, so we make sure that nothing's inappropriate that's gonna be put on the sidewalk. But we will have, we're going by grades. We have talked with the art teachers, and, the Spring Up Elementary art teacher is working with us, and the senior high art teacher is working with us. And in case y'all don't know, school does not have an art department. So I think that's really a depressing point, but I think this is a good place to make it. They don't, I don't know what the reason is there, but they don't have an art department. But this would be the Southern Nash Middle. So we would have, grades 3 from 12 to 12. So it's truly open up to anyone, but the art teachers are really helping us with their students, you know, making sure that our local schools are involved in this. So, it's gonna be in the downtown. We haven't actually walked the streets to find out where, you know, 3rd through 5th grade will be, and then your, you know, 6th through 8th grade will be. We haven't gotten that far yet. We're working on prizes, as we speak, but there, you know, the chamber will furnish the chalk because we want to make sure it is a water-based chalk. We don't want them to come in with their own items that, you know.
Permanent, yeah.
That's right. So we are furnishing that. Now this design and their drawings will stay on the sidewalk now until the rain washes it away.
Yes, sir.
So, and then we do have a rain date because, you know, we can't do this, you know. It's, the rain, and this is scheduled for May 3rd. That's what we're working toward. So I kind of covered, everything that I think I could on the permit, Andrew.
I have a question once you guys get done.
So one of the things I'd ask Bobby's crew to do is when we've established what areas are actually going to get drawn on, that they go out there and power wash the sidewalks so that it's a nice, clean canvas. But once that's established, so that we know exactly, so that we can get them nice and pristine looking.
Okay, that's wonderful. I like the creativity of that. That's going to be a big draw. A lot of the people moving here are young families with kids.
Now, your lady that, I don't think she owns the Arts Center, it's her parents that own it, right, Andrew?
That's correct.
April is also on this committee that has been working with this, and she has been an awful lot of help with getting this started too. So that's one of your businesses here in town that's helping us.
Good.
That's amazing.
I make a motion that we approve the permit for
Thank
the
you.
Chalk It Up
You
Festival.
had a question, right?
Okay, is there a charge for people who, children, so it's a free contest?
We're not gonna charge this year. This is kind of like our,
A preliminary?
right, okay. We're gonna see how many kids, and it is for adults also.
That's the part I don't understand. I heard you say kids certain grades, but how is it open to adults? Is it a kid with an adult in there with
No.
this?
No, one, let's just say the street here would be
Hey.
for,
Can I interrupt real quick? I'm sorry. If you could hold the questions for her after, we've got a motion on the table to approve it. But can you talk to her? Because I really want you to do a big article about this. So if you have, can you ask her after the meeting though? Okay, we do have a motion on the table. Thank you so
I
much.
second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries, thank you. All right, and moving on the agenda tonight, we've got the reports from code enforcement. Let's start there.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board of Commissioners. As you can see, won't take up much of your time. Tom Manager, myself, and Tom Attorney, diligently been working on trying to get these problems in the commercial area up to par. A lot of them we've been having some success. We are down to probably the last 3 that I can think of when you walk through this commercial area that you see, and we haven't brought before the board, or either have not put bounds on it. The warehouse right here on the corner of East Branch Street, South Ash. No one that they showed up for the hearing, that is the one that's actually adjacent from us, across from the Ted Bishop property.
Dan's.
217 South Ash Street, we did meet with the owner on that one.
You're talking about the metal structure.
It's the metal structure, yes,
Oh.
Yeah.
Other Bissett brother.
Backs up to K5, yeah.
Going right down Ash Street.
Yeah.
Now, nobody showed up down that day, so we're gonna have to get some guidance from the board if you guys and ladies would like to serve a fine on it as we did with the other ones, or if you wanna try that another
Yes.
means.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. 217 South Ash, we did speak with the owner, she did come out and talk with me, time out down there. She did explain that she was going through some legality problems with attaining the property. She has now attained everything where she can get involved with it. We worked out a 3-phase for her. The first phase, as we stated on the paper, clean it up, get the board up, taking out that brick facade. She said she didn't have a problem with that. Phase 2 will be attaining some permits, start doing some renovation work, get some stuff passed by Nash County. Then, of course, phase 3 will be the complete job, having everything renovated for the while.
Is that the building on Ash Street on the left going south that backs up to the new house being built?
Yes, sir, the old coffee shop. I believe she said it used to be a cafe that her uncle used to run, a coffee shop.
It's been a lot of things.
Yes, sir. And the last one was 206 South Pine Street. That is the white house beside the new house on Pine Street. The owner did come in and meet with Town Manager Dianio. He has been diligently working on the inside and not paying that much attention to the outside. But we told him it'd be better if he focuses attention on the outside first and then get back to the inside. He did not have a problem doing that. He told the same thing. He gave us about a 6-month turnaround we should see on that property. See the outside start looking more of a park. As far as our code enforcement hearings and fines, 409 Main Street, 6700 is going up. 804 East Nash Street, 67, that was going up again. 406 Avenue, that is the one with the shipping container, that was at about $5,800. Zone enforcement, we moved out 10 signs once again in the right of way. And we have pictures, I know we always say it every month about them, but we do have pictures of the signs in the right of way. It's the same person every month we buy houses. I'm still trying to do a reverse phone lookup and find an address to mail them a fine. Let them know we cannot put any places on the right of way. Just have I ain't no success with it. And of course, once I called that number and started texting the guy and he figured out kind of who I was, he just stopped answering texts and phone calls. The last thing, just other things we got, we need to move forward with. The last thing I think that I've seen in the town is not in the commercial district, is off of 222 and 224 Gum Street. It's that center block building behind those houses. It's kind of halfway built. I know we want to focus more on the commercial use, so that's why I put that towards the last of the list. That would be the last one we need to bring somebody in to have some discussion on.
Yeah, it's been on fire, I can go ahead and do it.
Okay, we're going to get out lead this one. That's probably the last one we got for us after that. Last things we got, code enforcement. We did send out 2 letters per Mayor Fisher's request about 202 Hopkins for junk and grass. We sent letters out to have that cleaned up. They should have it cleaned up by mid of April. If not, we'll have to send the streets over there. We have had some projects come to be completed. 206 Will Pine Street. They did remove all the tires from the back of the building. Still working on that stack parking with the whole, all the tires back have been removed. 301 East Railroad, Dennis Peterson, the town contractor, did get that one built up. 210 West Franklin Street, they did the work with the town, I'll get that demolished. So that one is down, and Dennis did call me today. His excavator is down, he's working on trying to get the fence to finish the job on that. We will entertain any questions from the mayor or the board if you have any, sir.
409 West Main, remind me what that is? House with the tree that fell on the building.
Yes, sir, that is it.
804 East Nash is,
The first one we brought in December, that is the person who asked to do a permit for a storage yard out there across from Fergie's. And from, the one in the triangle.
The one across the house.
Yeah,
Big trucks.
Yes, sir.
the logging place.
Yes, sir, that
Yes.
is it. We told them to submit a site plan, they did, but they never came back and did the other steps.
And that's the fine?
Yes, sir, that's.
Okay.
And the last one, your last picture is the one of the fence behind the store on 102 Lewisburg, I believe.
Yeah.
I'll make sure the address is correct. But you see it starting to fall in, so I'll send them to get prepared.
What about peeling paint on commercial buildings?
I don't think the town has a commercial property maintenance code like we have in Nashville where you kind of can address that. I don't think Springfield has that in their ordinance where we can address that.
Can you tell me more about how Nashville addresses peeling paint on commercial buildings?
We got a commercial property maintenance code we adopted about 5, 6 years ago that if it's in a bad disarray, we'll try to tell them to fix it. Then of course we try, if it's in our downtown area, we tell them to fix it. We tell, also encourage them when you fix it, apply for the downtown facade grant where we reimburse you for fixing it, but I don't think we got that here. But if it's a business outside of the downtown loop, of course, you can basically get apply for the side rate.
Would the commissioners be interested in the town manager getting more information about this policy that,
Commercial, it's our commercial property maintenance code up there.
Well, remember, Town of Nashville has a municipal service district.
Right.
So they pay a special assessment downtown to participate in that. So they pay extra tax, and
Yeah.
that's what they
And
use.
so that's how we pay out the facade grant. So we encourage our downtown commercial business, if you see one with building paint that looks kind of, it just a way we will say, hey, why don't you get it painted and then come back and get approved from the MSD board and commit, and town council to be rewarded $5,000 fee for facade grant. But of course, if you're outside the MSD district, then if you paint it, it's pretty much like you're doing business for the town.
Virtue is its own reward.
Thank you, sir. In a nutshell.
okay,
But if you just send us the address, we can take a look at it. I mean, sometimes stuff like that, if you just, maybe talk to the owner, kind of tell them the town's doing some good cleaning, things looking good, give them some little light bill, they sometimes jump on those type of projects.
it'd make a big difference.
Yes, sir. Just send me the address and we'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to other reports. Police chief.
This past month, we had 4 listed incident reports, 407 total calls for service, 162 traffic stops, 132, 35 security checks, 10 vehicle accidents, 7 domestic disputes, 4 disturbances, 7 investigations with 6 cleared. That's it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, chief. All right, we've got chamber reports. Did y'all want to add anything? Okay. And town manager, did you want to go anything over your report tonight?
I'm sorry I didn't get to submit a report to y'all. We have been busy though, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't get to the report. We did have our pre-bid for the depot project just last week. Went really well. We had some good-sized firms that have that would easily pre-qualify for the project. The pre-bid was not mandatory; it was optional, so other firms can still submit. Bids are due at the end of April. We do need to receive 3 bids. If we don't receive 3 bids, we'll have to rebid the project, so we'll have to put it out for a couple more weeks. So I hope that doesn't happen. But the addendum from the pre-bid should go out tomorrow, and we'll put that in e-procurement. Thank you, Michelle. The water main project is with DWI. We will be submitting the wells for permits as well. Those plans had to get stamped by an electrical engineer, so those will be going in. So that project hopefully will be underway in short order once all the government bureaucracy is done. The wastewater treatment plant project, smoke testing to deal with some of the I&I issues, that started, that went on last week. And they did find some areas where the storm drains are directly tied into the sanitary sewer. So that's some of the issue that's creating problems down at the treatment plant. Beyond that, really don't have anything to add that we haven't covered at length tonight, but if y'all have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Wow, it's 9:17. Thank you for details you shared with us off of your report tonight. A long meeting. Thank you to all the commissioners and staff for staying here this long. We appreciate it. And if there is nothing else, any comments, closing comments from the commissioners?
I got something to say.
Please, yes.
You told the gentleman from Nash County that we would get back with him in 2 months on this
No.
proposed. Did he say that?
Who, that?
From
He
Nash
would?
County? That you would hear something from us in 2 months?
I didn't say that.
What are we going to do about this proposed resolution? That's my question.
We gotta do a public hearing first.
What are
We don't
gonna
have to do anything.
We gotta do a public hearing.
We gotta do what now? Manager, what we gotta do?
Well, I mean, you can either, I mean, somebody can propose to adopt the resolution. You know, I mean, that would be the affirmative. I don't know.
I mean, they're having monthly meetings too. I mean, you can attend the monthly meeting.
What we gotta do?
So,
Thank you.
Wait for them to approach the town again.
No, we don't need to do that either.
I think it's the, you know, it's the board's presence of, or preference, sorry, on how you want to handle it. I think, from my perspective, there were a lot of things said tonight, and I'm not going to belabor because it's already late, but I think that what's being minimized is the cost. I mean, you know, this is an expensive proposition, and with inflation gets more and more expensive every day. I don't see the direct benefit to anyone except certain parties in participating in the authority, frankly. And I think even some of the parties who were referenced tonight, Town of Bailey being one, has other options. I think it was characterized as they have no option. I think they have had options. They chose not to pursue those options, and now it's suddenly become the problem of the town of the, you know, the residents of the town of Spring Hope. So I think there were a lot of mischaracterizations, and some of the lecturing that was done, or the speech that was presented, directly contradicted, you know. I think Commissioner Lucas put it best, you know, you kind of, who benefits from this? Cui bono, I think, is the way the Romans said it.
Well, you talk about cost. I listened to the meeting, and I read the slideshow, I read all the material, and the gentleman from Wooten said we would be looking at, or they would be looking at closer to 200 million by the time that project got up and going.
I mean, this is a time of retrenchment. You're seeing it in Washington, and to mischaracterize it, well, we're going to go look at grants. I mean, when was the last time you saw a $200 million grant?
Didn't he also mention loans?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's gonna take out a loan?
don't pay for it.
No.
I think we don't need to lose sight, though, of the long future, because if they create this authority without us, we need to expand our system. Let me finish. Let me finish. Because if we don't expand the territory that we control with our water tower and with our wastewater treatment plant and with our pipes, if we don't grow our footprint, then eventually they will come into our territory. So we can't lose the long sight focus. We have to grow. If we don't want to be a part of this authority, if you all don't want to, then we have to grow our territory, or they'll compete with us in the future.
And that's a good point, Mr. Mayor. We are competing. This is a competition, make no bones about it. I think, you know, Deputy Manager Boone said collaboration and cooperation. I don't know how much of that we've seen. But the fact of the matter is, I'm currently having discussions with a potential developer in the ETJ who has approached us about expanding our system. Those opportunities are there for us, and I may be bringing their proposal back to this board, hopefully, for you all to mull. So we are exploring those opportunities every chance we get. Of course, you have to put yourself in the developer's shoes. It's usually just a lot easier and cheaper to say, I'll put in a well and septic. So, you know, one of the things that maybe we can explore in the future is providing some type of a bonus for developers who want to put in a quality development, not just slap some stuff together out in the ETJ, for maybe some townhomes, for maybe some things that would provide them a value added to participate in our system, because we do have the ability to do that.
That is what I heard about, you know, allowing them to really recoup some of their costs by having townhomes or smaller lots mixed into
Well, it's also a benefit to our system, because we don't have to, you know, it's a lot easier to have that density all packed together. Our costs are cheaper, right, in terms of maintenance and so on, so.
Do we need a motion to this thing?
to adjourn.
I guess my question was, the resolution, was it sent to us? with the direction to approve or reject? Because it's a lot of fill in the blank, but this name goes here, this name, it's nothing, it doesn't look
The
official.
resolution came from Representative Chesser's office to, I think the mayor was a party to the email that went out. And the instruction was to take it to the boards. I think maybe the mayor could speak better to it too. I think he attended some of the meetings, so maybe he can enlighten us on some of that.
Well, I remember the email came from Sean, which is Representative Chester's legislative assistant. He's referring to that email I was just copied on. I don't know that it's ready for any kind of a vote. I think it's just in discussions amongst the towns.
I guess that's my question. Was this an informational? Is that why the county was here, to try to answer questions we may have? It's a call for a vote, because I can tell you if they're calling for the vote tonight, of course, they might not like it now or later, but if the vote
Right.
comes tonight, they ain't gonna like it. I mean,
Well,
I don't think they're near ready for a vote.
Well, one of the lines,
He said, made the comment that Bailey was voting later this month.
Right?
Yeah.
Middlesex as well.
one of the lines in there is before you vote on it,
You have to have a public
You have to
hearing.
have the public hearing. So we couldn't do anything tonight either way. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think.
what I was gonna ask, because it looks so informal.
Yeah, it's,
Purely
Looks like this is what we're thinking about. What do y'all think?
That's what it was, what we think.
That's what it kind of looked like.
yeah.
I mean, they've been having monthly meetings.
I know they have.
I think Spring Hope's invited to those meetings.
I don't remember the invitation.
I mean, I think Spring Hope is invited to those meetings.
Well, as I said, I think the mayor attends some of those meetings.
I did go to some of them, and they are just, you know, at first, it's really interesting, because at first it was Robbie Davis that was pushing the wastewater authority, or not authority, but the project. And then all of a sudden, at the last couple of months, it switched to Representative Chesser pushing a legislation, and so, or a resolution. And so honestly, it's nowhere near, they're nowhere near making a decision amongst themselves, and it's nowhere near ready for us to even.
Well, that was a pretty impassioned defense that Deputy Manager Boone presented for somebody who really didn't know what was going on. I mean, I would,
Yeah.
no disrespect, Attorney Edwards, but I think I'd want to hire him as my lawyer.
Who?
He did pretty good to
Jonathan
say he
Boone.
didn't think he's gonna be on the podium. He did pretty good.
Yeah, he did. I wish I could speak like that.
Well, he didn't say anything that lined up with any of the indications I got based on the meeting I watched at the commissioners meeting from last month, and that slideshow that I read through, and any of the other information I looked at. Everything he said had nothing, wasn't congruent at all with all the other information we had gotten.
And that's what I was trying to say. He seemed to know a whole lot more about it than he said he did.
Oh, yeah.
He said he didn't know anything, the resolution didn't come from them, but he had all the answers. But he said the same thing over and over, and that's what I was trying to say. That it just sounded like, it was just a story.
And if I may, since we're here and it's extra time, as they say in soccer, extra time. The idea that you're not surrendering your autonomy, and I think Commissioner Griffin alluded to that, is ludicrous. Of course you are. I mean, how can you have competing systems? How can you be competing against yourself? Of course you're giving up autonomy.
Right.
It's ludicrous to think otherwise. But yet, and as I said, Commissioner Boone started to go down that track and then quickly caught himself and said, well, then maybe I better not start talking about that. So,
Which part, losing autonomy?
yeah.
I was a little disappointed the actual county manager didn't speak. Don't say anything.
I get myself into enough trouble.
She was here.
I just want to know what we were gonna do with it. I guess nothing.
Well, whether it happens tonight or a month from now, I think we know what's gonna happen. But I just wanna make sure there's no, because to Eric's point, we need to make sure there's no public hearing required. I don't want somebody to come back and say we did something.
Yeah.
I would
Right.
think for something like this, you would have to have a public
Public
hearing.
hearing, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Informational. That was a great question, though. Great question. Commissioners, any closing comments on this end? Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Appreciate it. Thank y'all for being here tonight.
Thank y'all.
I think so. Don't let me half over until we get there.
Better not ever need a job.
So painful.
It's going insane.
I don't trust them no way.